Boscastle is a tiny village on the north coast of Cornwall that has one of the most spectacular natural harbours I've ever seen. I mean, wow, look at that. In this guide I'm going to show you all the best bits, so let's go have a look. Boscastle's location is somewhat isolated on the north coast of Cornwall, and getting there by public transport is rather tricky, so it's honestly best to drive. If public transport is your only option, then the best bet is to get to either Bude or Wadebridge and then hop on the number 95 bus. If going by car, there is a massive car park on the edge of the town with plenty of spaces, but this place will get very busy at peak times, so getting here early is advised. To reach the main part of the village and harbour from here, simply follow the river. Boscastle is tiny, with a population of about 700 people. The history of the village dates back to about 1080 and was named after Botro Castle of the de Botro family, who used to run things in this area back then. Not much remains of the castle, and since then the village thrived as a fishing and trade port, especially for slate quarrying, but is now mostly known as a tourist destination despite suffering a catastrophic flood in 2004. The old part of the town is charming and full of small shops selling tourist goodies and Cornish pasties. Most of the buildings are old and quaint, especially on the historic Valency Row, which has the feeling of a quintessential English village with its vintage facades. There is also a small museum of witchcraft, which I've heard is fun, but I didn't go in as the weather was simply too good. Toward the harbour there is also a nice tea room where you can get great snacks and drinks. All this, of course, leads to the amazing harbour, which is surrounded by steep, rugged hills, giving it the feeling of being a miniature Norwegian fjord. It really is stunning and a great place for photography, walking and sightseeing. There are a few fishing boats here, and it can look very different depending on how high the tide is. The old harbour walls were built in 1584 by Sir Richard Grenville and is the only significant harbour for 20 miles. It's worth exploring both sides of the harbour, so let's start on the right side or east and walk along the small track to Warren Point. As you go along, the views will become more spectacular as the full scale of the natural inlet is slowly revealed. Here's a little montage of what to expect. Once you have explored the point, then follow the small path upwards to Penally Hill. From the top you will get the best views of Boscastle, its harbour and surrounding countryside. This is also the best place to see the entire S-shaped inlet in all its glory. In fact, it's one of the best views I've ever seen, so don't miss it. Once you've finished, then head back down to the village, grab refreshments if need be, then head along the other side to the harbour itself, where you can stroll along the harbour wall, admire the boats and get more excellent views like these. Then head upwards once again and follow the path until you reach Boscastle Coastwatch station, which is a small white tower perched on top of the cliffs. Yep, that's right, once again you will be treated to some mesmerising views of the rugged coastline and Atlantic Ocean. Once you've taken your fill of the views, then head back down. Depending on the tide and weather, you might get to see the famous blowhole known as the souffleur, which is French for blower. It looked and sounded pretty cool on my visit, so keep your eyes and ears open for it. That's it for Boscastle. It's not easy to reach, but it's really worth it, so I hope you get to visit. Thanks for watching and cheerio!